never imagined that the day I walked into the boardroom, heart pounding like a war drum, would become the most pivotal moment of my career. My name is Vivian Harper, and for years I'd poured every ounce of my ambition, creativity, and late nights into a proposal I believed could transform our company. Yet every time I pitched it, Jason Caldwell, my boss, would brush me off with a polite smile and a vague promise. Vivian, it's a great idea, I'll look at it soon. When you've spent months crafting a plan that could revolutionize our product line, boosting sales, streamlining operations, and enhancing customer loyalty, you don't let soon be the final word. You make it now. I'd arrived at Caldwell Industries straight out of graduate school, diploma still crisp in my hand, determined to prove I belonged. Day after day, I immersed myself in spreadsheets, trend analyses, and brainstorming sessions, always pushing the boundaries of what was expected from a mid-level project manager. But ambition can be a double-edged sword. The higher you climb, the more precarious your perch becomes. They called me a visionary behind my back, but in front of me, they saw a junior exec, eager, polite, and easy to dismiss. Jason Caldwell was a titan in our industry, a man whose handshake could make headlines. He prided himself on tradition, incremental change, steady growth, and the safety of the status quo. My proposal threatened to upend that safety net, to inject innovation into his carefully calibrated empire. When I first pitched the idea, I'd envisioned a sleek multimedia presentation, complete with interactive demos and pilot program data. I practiced in front of my mirror on sweaty nights, clutching a cup of lukewarm coffee, voice trembling as I sold the vision. But when the big day came, Jason had rescheduled, then postponed again. Each time, my confidence wavered, but the core belief in my idea remained unshaken. That belief became my compass. Weeks later, I found myself standing in the quiet after-hours office, the hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence as I replayed every scene in my mind. I pictured the board's surprise, the gasps as projections illuminated the room. I could taste the triumph in the air. But I knew I couldn't count on Jason to deliver me to that moment. So I did the unthinkable. Early the next morning, wearing my most professional navy blazer and a pair of heels that gave me an extra inch of confidence, I walked past the receptionist without a word. I headed straight for the executive elevator, access reserved for senior leadership. My access card beeped twice, then let me in. I rode up, heartbeat accelerating until I reached the top floor. Outside the grand oak doors of the boardroom, I paused and took a deep breath. The smell of polished mahogany drifted out, mingled with the faint aroma of espresso in anticipation. I clicked my heels against the marble floor and entered without knocking. Inside, the board members sat around a long, oval table, their attention fixed on a projection of quarterly figures, numbers I'd memorized in my sleep. For a moment, every eye swiveled toward me, surprise flickering across their faces. "Excuse me," I began, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through my veins. "I'd like to present my proposal now." The eldest board member, Mr. Ellsworth, raised an eyebrow. "And you are?" "Vivian Harper, project manager," I said, stepping forward and clicking the remote. At once, the screen shifted, revealing the first slide of my pitch, a bold title, vibrant graphics, and a tagline that read, "Transforming Tomorrow Today." Silence. Then, the room leaned in. Slide after slide, I spoke with conviction. I charted the market trends, highlighted user feedback, and unveiled a pilot that had already doubled engagement in our test group. I addressed every potential concern: budget constraints, resource allocation, risk mitigation, anticipating objections before they emerged. Halfway through, Mr. Ellsworth's stern expression softened, replaced by genuine interest. I watched as notes appeared on his pad as he nodded along, eyes alight. A few other directors exchanged glances, whispered to one another, then returned their focus to me. When I finished, the boardroom was electric. Jason Caldwell stormed in, eyes blazing. "Vivian," he hissed under his breath, but I kept my composure. Before any rebuttal could form, Mr. Ellsworth cleared his throat. "That was impressive, Miss Harper. We'd like to discuss this as a full board matter." My heart thudded. This was it. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe." Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The room paused, a collective beat of astonishment and excitement. I locked eyes with Jason, who seemed momentarily speechless, his authority eclipsed by the force of my determination. And that, dear friends, was the moment I realized that sometimes, to make your voice heard, you have to step into the lion's den and roar on your own terms. Stay tuned, because the fallout from today's presentation is just beginning. Stay tuned, because the fallout from today's presentation is just beginning. The hum of conversation rose around me as Jason Caldwell collected his composure. His jaw clenched in a way that suggested I'd just lit a fuse under a powder keg. I slipped out of the executive suite before the meeting could adjourn, navigating the labyrinth of corridors with my pulse still racing. Every eye along the hallway followed me, the whisper of nylon and leather heels slicing through the hush. I felt equal parts exhilarated and terrified, like I'd just jumped from a plane without checking whether my parachute was packed. Seconds later, my phone buzzed with messages from colleagues. Holy, did you just hijack the board? I've never seen Caldwell speechless. When's the rollout? Their excitement was infectious, but I forced myself to focus. This victory was fragile. Jason would retaliate. That much was certain. By the time I reached my office, the usual calm of early afternoon had given way to electric tension. My open plan cube was strewn with half-empty coffee cups and sticky notes charting project timelines. But now, a new note dominated my mind. Survival. I sank into my chair and stared at the blinking cursor on my computer. The presentation deck conspicuously absent, I realized I needed a plan. Not just to capitalize on the board's approval, but to safeguard myself against Jason's inevitable schemes. I tapped out an email to Melissa Wu, the head of corporate communications. Melissa, urgent. Can we meet today? I need support on the rollout strategy and official communications plan. I hit send, then dialed Marcus Bennett, my mentor in the finance division. Marcus, are you free? I could use an ally in the numbers side, especially for the cost-benefit analysis they'll demand. Within minutes, I had appointments on my calendar and a network of support starting to form. The thrill of momentum pulsed through me, but in the back of my mind, a darker question lingered. What would Jason do when he realized his authority had been circumvented? He found me in the stairwell outside my office, 2 flights up, where the flickering emergency lights cast long shadows. His tailored suit jacket looked impeccable, but his posture was rigid. Vivian. His voice was soft, but I heard the steel beneath. We need to talk. I braced myself, clipboard pressed to my chest like a shield. Of course. He didn't lead me to his office, or a meeting room. Instead, we stood in that pale, narrow corridor where the disinfectant smell lingered in the air. He leaned close. You overstepped. You know that, right? I exhaled slowly. I delivered results. The board is behind the proposal. Results don't matter if they undermine the chain of command. He paused, gaze unwavering. I could push to have this vote invalidated, Vivian. Would you? I held his gaze. Because if that vote gets rescinded, it undermines their credibility, and yours. The board won't let you make that call alone. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Jason's face. He studied me, perhaps recognizing that I'd calculated the leverage. Then he nodded, just once, filing that under. He waved a hand. We'll see. When he turned away, I felt an electric jolt of triumph, but I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Instead, I raced back to my desk, heart pounding, mind already 3 steps ahead. Late afternoon, the board's executive secretary emailed official minutes. Motion passed unanimously. Implement Project Horizon Pilot Program Q4. Project Horizon was my proposal's code name, one I'd chosen for its symbolism: expand our vision, break old boundaries. Unanimously. I closed my eyes and let the words sink in. Then it hit me. The next battle was communications. This wasn't a secret uprising. It had to become a company-wide catalyst. I jumped on a conference call with Melissa. We have unanimous board approval, I said, voice steady. Let's prepare the all-staff announcement tonight so it goes live tomorrow morning. And I want a feature story in the company newsletter, highlighting the strategic vision. Frame it as a collective win, with a nod to the team's innovation. Melissa's voice crackled with excitement. Consider it done. I tapped open the draft email to the entire senior leadership team, CCing department heads. As I drafted the subject line, announcing Project Horizon, a new era of innovation at Caldwell Industries, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. "Careful, Vivian. Not everyone will cheer for you." Quote. My stomach clenched. I recognized the stylized font. I'd seen similar on the company's internal warning banners. It could only be one person. Jason. I stared at the message, the thrill of victory colliding with a cold realization. The storm wasn't over. It was only just begun. My finger hovered over the reply field. And in that pause, I felt an electric thrill, knowing I held the moral high ground, the backing of the board, and a plan to reshape the company. But I also knew power, when challenged, can be ruthless. And Project Horizon was no longer just a proposal. It was my lifeline. I hit send on the announcement email and watched it disappear into the digital ether. Then I leaned back in my chair, eyes fixed on the glowing screen. Tomorrow, the entire company would awaken to a new reality, and I would be at the center of it. The final bell rang on the 18th floor, and as colleagues began shuffling out, I couldn't shake the prickling sensation that unseen eyes watched me from every corner. I gathered my things and headed towards the elevator, mind racing with strategies, contingencies, and the single unshakable thought: this was far from over. The elevator doors closed behind me with a metallic sigh, and I pressed my forehead against the cool glass panel, trying to tame the whirlwind of thoughts in my head. The corridors had emptied, desks stood abandoned, screens dim. But the echoes of what I'd set in motion still reverberated through every cubicle, every whispered conversation. I stepped off on my floor and moved through the space as though navigating a minefield. Each passing glance felt loaded, like unseen cameras were following my every move. I realized that by announcing Project Horizon so publicly, I'd painted a target on my back. My phone buzzed again, another text from unknown. The simplicity of the message sent a chill through me. Beware the calm. I slid the phone into my bag and headed to the break room, grabbing a glass of water and staring at my reflection in the mirrored stainless steel. Vivian Harper, the woman who'd dared to stand in the lion's den, looked back at me with equal measures of resolve and apprehension. Maybe I should have stayed silent. But no silence would have meant surrender. I resolved to meet the storm head-on, but first I needed allies. The communications plan was set, the press release drafted, and the pilot timeline locked in. Now, I needed to turn my team into a fortress. I rounded the corner to my project room, where the cross-functional crew for Project Horizon had been assembling quietly behind closed doors. Screens glowed with charts and flowcharts. Sticky notes fluttered in the breeze of the room's tiny fan. Faces lit up when I entered, but tension etched around their eyes. "Morning," I said, voice steady. "I know you've seen the announcement." They nodded, relief and excitement flickering across their features. Rania from UX spoke first. "It's official. We're live. But, what about next steps?" I set my bag down and retrieved my notebook. "First, congratulations. You survived the coup. Now, we solidify our advantage." I tapped the page. "Melissa's team will roll out internal comms this afternoon, then press release tomorrow at dawn. But while the world's eyes are on us, we start the pilot. Marcus, you've finalized the Q4 budget?" Marcus Bennett, tall and composed, nodded. "Ready. I have the final numbers for resource allocation, engineers, marketing support, and a contingency fund for unforeseen hurdles." "Perfect." I turned to Lee, our lead engineer. "Development sprints begin Monday. I want the MVP ready for testing by midweek. And Rania, your UX prototypes. Make sure we have feedback loops in place with the user panel." "On it," Rania said, already tapping on her laptop. As the team dove into the details, I watched them with pride. They had faith in me. I would not let them down. But I also knew that once the pilot began, scrutiny would intensify. Every metric, every hiccup, every tiny glitch could be exploited by those waiting for me to fail. Hours passed in a blur of status calls, design reviews, and budget sign-offs. By late afternoon, the break room had transformed into a war room, whiteboards scrawled with tasks, terminals displaying real-time dashboards, calendars synced to the second. Then, my phone buzzed again. I slipped away to a quiet corner of the office, heart pounding as I read the message. You may have bought the board's favor, but you haven't bought loyalty. Keep your friends close, and your enemies closer. I dropped my phone onto the desk with a soft thud. Loyalty, enemies. The words danced in my mind like a cryptic riddle. Who was this? Jason? Someone else entirely? The anonymity of the text fueled my paranoia. I took a deep breath. I could panic, or I could strategize. And strategy was my domain. First order of business: identify the source. I pulled up the internal messaging logs and cross-referenced the stylized font metadata with the corporate templates. Systems access logs revealed that the message had been sent from an unregistered burner in the building's visitor Wi-Fi. In other words, someone with clearance or someone with help. But who had the motive? Jason's threat was the obvious suspect, but his passive-aggressive texts felt too formal. This was different, more personal. I needed information, and I needed it fast. I typed a quick directive to my assistant, Priya: track visitor network logs for suspicious devices. Prioritize connections during business hours. Let me know the results within the hour. Priya's instant reply: on it. As I waited, I turned my attention back to the war room. The team needed clarity, not whispers of doom. I couldn't let them see my doubts. I strode back, rolling up my sleeves. All right, team. Checkpoints for tomorrow. First, confirm the internal comm schedule so everyone hears the news directly from us. Second, finalize the pilot logistics. Third, use this momentum to gather early user feedback, social media, forums, direct outreach. Let's shape the narrative. They nodded, rallied by my energy. But even as I led them, my mind spun with contingencies. I drafted a list of possible saboteurs: Jason Caldwell, the rogue faction within senior leadership, maybe even someone outside the org waiting to capitalize on a misstep. One name surfaced unexpectedly: Helena Ross, CFO. She'd been lukewarm about Horizon from day one. When I'd pitched the initial concept to executive leadership, she'd asked sharp questions that stalled progress. If anyone stood to lose power, no, influence, from this project, it could be her. I decided to test the theory. I sent Helena a calendar invite: Horizon Finance Review, 10 a.m. tomorrow. The invite went out via official channels flagged as high priority. Within seconds, Helena's reply popped up. No's declined. Please send summary. Aha. Declined? Not a direct refusal, but distance. I jotted a note: No's AAA, obstructionist, and filed it under the mountain of intelligence I was gathering. Just then, Priya pinged. Got a match. MAC address tied to the burner device, also accessed an executive printer on the 12th floor at 2 p.m. today, directly next to your office. My pulse spiked. I recognized that hallway. Cameras, but blind spots by the printer alcove. Someone had lingered there, maybe to send the anonymous text. Thanks, Priya, I murmured. Any sign of that device on any other floors? Priya's reply: No, appears local to 12 and 18. Could be someone in the Project Horizon roster. My mind whirled. A traitor in my own circle? Or simply someone with open access? A senior exec, perhaps. By the time I left the office that night, the war room lights glowed like beacons of defiance. Outside, the city skyline stretched into the horizon, lights flickering against the deepening blue. I paused, staring into the distance. This was bigger than me now. It was a clash of wills, a war for the future of Caldwell Industries. And as I walked to my car, the wind carrying the distant hum of traffic, I felt a fierce determination knot in my chest. No matter who struck next, I would be ready. Because in this game, only one thing mattered: survival. The following morning dawned crisp and clear, the sun's rays slicing through the glass facade of Caldwell Industries like spotlights illuminating a stage. I arrived 15 minutes early, determined to catch any dust particles in the air, any sign of discord or lingering resentment. My phone buzzed with notifications, internal message threads exploding with reactions. tweets from industry analysts, even a flurry of LinkedIn posts praising Project Horizon. It felt like I'd unleashed a tidal wave of possibility. But beneath the surface, turbulence was brewing. As I stepped off the elevator, the lobby thrummed with energy. Security guards nodded at me, their faces an odd blend of curiosity and concern. I wondered if the word had filtered down already. The junior exec who upended the board. The elevator doors slid open, and I strode toward the central atrium where the all-staff announcement was scheduled. A crisp, white banner unfurled across the mezzanine. Project Horizon, implementing innovation, today. Below it, a team of AV technicians fussed with cameras and microphones. The board members would stream in shortly. The entire global workforce would witness this moment. I took a deep breath, smoothing my blazer. My reflection in the polished floor reminded me of how far I'd come, from late-night coffees in that tiny cubicle to center stage under blinding lights. But there was no time for sentimentality. I tapped my earpiece as Melissa's voice crackled. "Vivian, you're live in 5. Camera 1 is on you." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I marched to the podium, palms pressed against the smooth wood, and the murmur of hundreds of employees faded as the broadcast began. "Good morning, Caldwell family," I began, voice steady. "Today marks a new chapter in our journey." My speech wove through the vision, the unanimous board vote, and the pilot timeline. I acknowledged the teams, named mentors and collaborators, and painted a vivid picture of how Project Horizon would revolutionize user engagement. But as I spoke, I sensed a flicker in the crowd. In the second row, Helena Ross sat rigidly, arms crossed, her lips pressed into a thin line. A man beside her, one of the senior directors, exchanged a furtive glance. Jason Caldwell, seated alone on the far side, wore an expression I couldn't decipher. As the Q&A began, hands shot up. Everyone from marketing leads to junior analysts asked enthusiastic questions. But Helena's silence spoke volumes. She hadn't raised her hand once. They switched to a live poll. "Do you support moving into pilot phase?" The results flashed. 92% yes, 8% abstain. A wave of applause. But that 8% lingered in my mind. After the event, the lobby emptied quickly, employees eager to return to their day's tasks. I lingered for water, scanning faces. Then I felt it, a presence. I turned to see Helena's steel blue eyes locked onto mine. She advanced through the departing sea of colleagues. "Ms. Harper," she said, voice low, "may I have a word?" I nodded, gesturing toward a quiet corner near the fountains. As soon as we were out of earshot, she said, "Congratulations on the rollout. Impressive." She paused. "But congratulations alone won't safeguard you from the fallout." I tilted my head. "What fallout?" "You've disrupted the ecosystem." Her tone was cold but not unkind. "Innovation is valuable, yes, but so is stability. You're forcing rapid change. Many in this company, and outside it, prefer steady seas over stormy breakthroughs. I understand the risks. That's why we plan meticulously." She steadied me. "Planning is one thing, execution is another. Keep your eyes open, Vivian. Not all enemies wear suits. Some sit at board tables." Before I could reply, she excused herself and walked away, heels clicking like a countdown. I watched her go, words swirling in my head. The CFO's warning echoed the anonymous texts. Clearly, someone at the top feared what Horizon would unleash. I needed to strike back, but strategically. If Helena and her allies wanted to slow the pilot, I'd give them a reason to join instead of oppose. Back at my desk, I drafted a targeted brief for the finance office. Show data on projected cost savings in Q1, emphasize short-term wins alongside long-term vision. Then, I composed a special invite for Helena, exclusive preview of pilot metrics and user feedback from the trenches. I labeled it private and confidential, delivered via encrypted channel. If she was skeptical, this data would be impossible to ignore. I sent the invite and let the message linger in her inbox, imagining her reading it. Then, I moved on to the next challenge, public perception. Media outlets had picked up the story. I scanned headlines, Rising Star Sparks Boardroom Revolution, and Young Exec Overthrows CEO's Authority. One particularly snarky blog read, Dangerous Gambit or Brilliant Move. Inside Caldwell's coup d'etat. The narrative was out of my control, and that terrified me more than any boardroom battle. So I reached out to PR. Let's craft op-eds framing Project Horizon as visionary leadership, not corporate insurrection. I'll do interviews, personally. Melissa replied, already on it, preparing your talking points. As I watched the sun dip below the skyline from my office window, I realized the fight for perception would be as intense as the one for control. Tonight, I'd prepare. Tomorrow, we'd go public, together. Because in this game of power and influence, momentum was everything. And I was just getting started. The morning sun filtered through the slats of my blinds, cutting across my face in golden beams. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, coffee mug warming my hand. The red light of my phone's alert blinked with Helena's reply. She'd accepted the invite. Thank you. I look forward to the data, read her curt message, a small victory. I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth settle my nerves. Today was pivotal. I would win over the skeptics, one by one, turning resistance into advocacy. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. Helena's guarded tone haunted me. Her influence over the CFO's office could throttle Horizon before it gained momentum. I typed out a quick outline for our meeting. 1. Narbs snarbs narbs narbs direct snarbs narbs 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 asterisk. Show key performance indicators, user engagement uptick, streamlined support tickets, early revenue projections. 2. Narbs 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 highlight safety nets, QA protocols, rollback procedures, contingency budgets. 3. Cross-functional benefits asterisk. Emphasize how Horizon's success would bolster every department, from sales to operations. 4. Open dialogue asterisk. Address concerns head-on. Invite Helena's input. Satisfied, I closed the laptop and headed into the city. Helena's office was in the historic district branch, a converted warehouse with floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, and a view of the Thames sparkling in the distance. I entered the building, the scent of freshly ground coffee and polished wood greeting me. Her assistant led me through glass partitions into a sleek conference room. Helena sat at the far end, her posture impeccable, a tablet open before her. I returned her nod with a confident smile and began my presentation. Thank you for meeting me, Ms. Ross. I'll keep this concise. I launched into the pilot metrics, and nearly an hour flew by in a flurry of numbers, charts, and case studies. Helena listened, scribbling notes. At one point, she raised an eyebrow. Your engagement numbers are impressive. But what about long-term scalability? She asked. We've run simulations for load testing and forecasted resource allocation for up to 10x growth in user base. Our cloud infrastructure can auto-scale, and we have a dedicated DevOps team monitoring performance in real time. If thresholds breach, we have manual overrides ready. I clicked to a slide illustrating the architecture. She nodded slowly. That addresses my technical concerns, but I need assurance this won't destabilize other projects. I leaned forward, meeting her gaze. It's all about integration. We've cross-trained teams, built shared roadmaps, and scheduled collaborative sprints. This isn't a standalone initiative. It's woven into our quarterly objectives. There was a pause, weighty and deliberate. Then Helena set down her pen. You've done your homework. She tapped the tablet, and the next slide appeared. Projected cost savings for enterprise support. I pressed on, then paused mid-sentence, heart racing. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Clearing my throat, I refocused on Helena. As you can see, the pilot not only drives customer satisfaction but also trims operational costs by 12%. That's a tangible, immediate win. Helena's gaze softened. I see the value. You've turned skeptics into believers. At least me, she half smiled. Consider me on board. Triumph swelled inside me, but I remained measured. Thank you. I appreciate your candid feedback. With your support, we can solidify Horizon's position before any backlash intensifies. She stood, extending her hand. I look forward to our collaboration, Vivian. Let's write the next chapter together. She led me to the window overlooking the river. Remember, though, control the narrative. The media will eat you alive if they sense vulnerability. I nodded, absorbing her warning. Understood. We'll manage communications with precision. Back at the office, the corridors hummed with activity. My project room felt like home now, screens pulsating with data. The team greeted me with cautious optimism. I shared Helena's endorsement, and they erupted in quiet cheers. But celebration was fleeting. I reminded them of our next phases: A/B testing user flows, integrating feedback loops, and preparing for the global launch in Q1. We dived into work with renewed vigor. That evening, as dusk painted the sky in shades of purple, I reviewed the day's wins and threats. Helena's support was crucial, but the boardroom battlefield still loomed. Jason Caldwell's correspondence remained silent. The anonymous texts had ceased, perhaps deterred, perhaps waiting. I sent a final update to Melissa. Helena Ross is on board. Let's amplify this in tomorrow's press briefing. Include a quote from Helena praising Horizon's fiscal prudence. I hit send and sat back, feeling the weight of the upcoming weeks settle in my bones. Outside, the city lights blinked to life. I stood by the window, phone in hand, thinking about the path ahead. Step by step, I was transforming Caldwell Industries and my own destiny. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles for hearts and minds. But for tonight, I allowed myself a moment of quiet triumph. My calendar was a blur of colored blocks, meetings, interviews, strategy sessions. By the time I reached the office that morning, the project timeline resembled a complex mosaic, each piece carefully placed, yet susceptible to a sudden shift. I grabbed a coffee from the cafeteria and paused as I passed a newsstand. The headlines splashed across the business section. Project Horizon, Caldwell's bold leap or reckless gamble. The accompanying article quoted industry experts divided on the initiative's risks and rewards. I tore off the section and tucked it into my briefcase, evidence that the world was watching. When I reached my desk, an urgent message from Jason Caldwell blinked on my screen. Office. Now. No explanation. My heart sank. I sensed confrontation ahead. I squared my shoulders and made my way to his corner office, the city's skyline framing his polished mahogany desk. Jason stood behind it, arms crossed, eyes dark. "Vivian," he said softly, "you've stirred the hornet's nest." I met his gaze. "I've given everyone a vision." "Vision doesn't pay the bills," he replied. "Transparency does. Your media blitz is causing shareholder jitters. The board is receiving frantic calls this morning." "Then let's give them transparency." I slid the torn article across his desk. "Share the full pilot data, let them see the metrics, invite them to the next review meeting." He frowned, deliberating. Finally, he nodded. "Fine, but I want to co-host the presentation. We need unity." "Agreed," I said, relief washing over me. We scheduled a board review for the following day. As I left, Jason's parting words echoed. "One misstep, Harper. One glitch, and Horizon crashes." Back at my desk, I gathered the team. "Board review tomorrow morning," I announced. "Caldwell wants to co-host, so we need all figures flawless. Let's run one more stress test on the platform and refine the Q&A deck." They rallied instantly, fueled by the high stakes. I moved between clusters of analysts and engineers, troubleshooting issues, refining slides, and rehearsing potential questions. By late afternoon, the project room buzzed with a determined energy. I checked my watch. 6:15 p.m. The city lights flickered on outside. Then, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Crisis Management. A key investor had issued a public statement expressing concern over, quote, unverified projections. They demanded reassurances before doubling their investment commitment. My chest tightened. The stakes were higher than ever. I called an emergency huddle. "We have to address investor concerns directly. Let's prepare a bulletproof response. Audited data, validated user testimonials, and a clear roadmap. We'll propose a live demo for our investor council next week." Marcus, ever pragmatic, tapped at his keyboard. "I can have audited figures ready by midnight." "Good, Rania, get 3 user testimonies filmed and edited by morning. Priya, coordinate with communications to craft an official statement." They dispersed. determination in their eyes. The war room became a furnace of productivity. At 10 p.m., as the corridors fell silent, I stayed behind. My eyes red from screen glare. I watched as the engineers finalized the stress test. Each ping on their dashboards confirmed stability. A sense of cautious optimism settled in my chest. We'd weathered boardroom battles, media storms, and investor doubts. Yet tomorrow's review would be the ultimate test. When I finally left the office at midnight, the lobby lights dimmed, security guards nodding in recognition. Outside, the city's pulse was a distant hum. I stepped into the cool night air, streetlights guiding my path. I reached my car, hands trembling with adrenaline and exhaustion. I stared at the horizon. Here, in the city that never truly slept, my vision was unfolding. Tomorrow I would stand beside Caldwell at the board table, united in purpose. But as I drove home, the echo of Jason's warning haunted me, one misstep. And in the dawn's fragile light, I promised myself I would not slip. I arrived at the boardroom at 8:15 a.m. sharp, 45 minutes before our scheduled review. The sky was still a pale wash of dawn, and the city's towers glowed softly through the glass walls. When I stepped into the anteroom, the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the undercurrent of nerves. Board members trickling in, paperwork rustling, aides trading hushed updates. Jason Caldwell was already there, standing by the window. He turned as I approached, offering a curt nod. For a moment, we simply regarded each other, two warriors poised before the battlefield. "Ready?" he asked. I smiled, steadying my breath. "Absolutely." We were ushered in by the executive secretary. Inside, the long mahogany table gleamed under recessed lights, seats neatly arranged with nameplates and tablets. The other board members, Ellsworth, Ross, Bennett, settled into their chairs. Their faces bore expressions of curiosity, anticipation, and, in some cases, guarded skepticism. As Jason and I took our places at the head of the table, I felt the weight of every eye in the room. Jason cleared his throat. "Thank you all for being here. Today, Vivian and I will present Project Horizon's progress, metrics, milestones, and the path forward." He gestured to me, and I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared. Project Horizon Board Review, Metrics and Roadmap. My pulse steadied. Over the past 2 weeks, I began. We've executed initial stress tests, engaged a user panel of 5,000 participants, and audited our financial projections. I will walk you through the data, and then Jason and I will address any questions. I glanced at Jason, who gave me a slight nod. Slide after slide, I delivered the results. Server response times held under mission-critical thresholds, user satisfaction scores rose by 18%, support tickets decreased by 12%. On the financial side, Marcus's audited figures confirmed a net positive ROI within 8 weeks of pilot launch. When I concluded, I looked up to see a sea of impressed faces. Even Helena Ross seemed pleased, her pen resting on the table. Ellsworth adjusted his glasses, brow furrowed. "Impressive work, Ms. Harper," he said, "but let's discuss risk." Jason cleared his throat. "I will address risk mitigation protocols." He launched into the rollback procedures, isolated database snapshots, real-time monitoring, and a rapid response team structure. The board listened attentively, peppering us with questions about contingency budgets and cross-departmental dependencies. Each query was an opportunity to reinforce our preparation. When concerns arose, I provided examples of similar rollouts in peer companies, highlighting case studies that paralleled our approach. Halfway through, Ellsworth leaned forward. "There's talk in investor circles that Horizon is too ambitious for a company of our size. What's your response?" I exchanged a glance with Jason. He shook his head and gestured for me to reply. I took a breath. Ambition must be matched with precision. We've deliberately structured Horizon as a scalable pilot. If metrics show diminishing returns, we adjust parameters incrementally. This is not an all-or-nothing gamble. It's a data-driven, adaptive strategy. Ellsworth nodded slowly. "Very well." Next, Helena Ross spoke. "Your integration with existing systems, how seamless is it? We cannot afford disruptions to our core services." I clicked to a live dashboard demo. showing real-time data pipelines feeding analytics dashboards without interrupting legacy processes. The board watched the automated failover scenario, eyes widening as the system rerouted traffic flawlessly when I triggered a simulated network spike. A murmur of amazement rippled around the table. When the demo concluded, Bennett, the finance head, asked about projected cash flow. Marcus's voice joined mine, detailing cost savings and reinvestment strategies. After 90 minutes, we reached the final slide, recommendations and next steps. It outlined a phased rollout to 2 additional markets in Q1, along with expanded feature sets. I concluded, with your approval, we'll proceed to global Q1 launch, confident in our metrics, our financials, and our contingency plans. A hush settled. Then, Ellsworth cleared his throat. All in favor of moving forward with the global launch as presented? Hands began to rise. First Ross, then Bennett, then the others. Finally, Jason and I exchanged triumphant smiles as the vote concluded unanimously. The board secretary tallied the votes. Motion carries. A ripple of applause followed. I felt my chest tighten with relief and exhilaration. Jason exhaled, a rare smile breaking his composed facade. I stood, offering a handshake to each board member as I passed. Outside the room, the corridors buzzed anew with whispers of the vote. I allowed myself a moment of silent pride, but I knew the work was far from done. Later that afternoon, I gathered the Project Horizon team in the war room. I announced the global launch, deadlines, and new objectives. Cheers erupted, and for a moment, the air crackled with victory. Then, beneath the celebration, I sensed the subtle undercurrent of scrutiny, the knowledge that many eyes would watch our every move. As the team dispersed to prepare, I pulled Jason aside. Thank you for backing me in there. He nodded. You earned it. But when I looked at him, I saw a glint, part respect, part rivalry. I realized that while we'd won the board's endorsement, the real battle for influence had only begun. I left the office that evening with the sunset painting the skyline crimson. The horizon looked infinite, promising triumphs and dangers just beyond my reach. Tomorrow we'd start a new chapter, global rollout, and I, Vivian Harper, would lead the charge. The morning of the global launch felt surreal. As I drove through the city streets, the sun barely had risen, and yet my phone buzzed with alerts. Local press in London, Frankfurt, and New York had picked up our announcement. Project Horizon had transcended internal memos. It was now a headline. I arrived at Caldwell Industries at 6:30 a.m., 2 hours before our scheduled sync calls, because I needed the quiet to gather my thoughts. The office was hushed, floors gleaming, empty conference rooms waiting. In the war room, I found Marcus and Priya already reviewing the final readiness report. All systems green, Marcus said without looking up. Server clusters deployed across all regions, load balancers configured, and capacity buffers set at 30% above forecast. Priya handed me a printout. Media coverage metrics. Mentions are positive overall, but there's a rising thread on risk narratives. We need to address that. I nodded, scanning the sheet. Let's prepare a rapid response team for social channels. We'll have a FAQ thread ready and designate spokespeople for live Q&A sessions. Rania, our UX lead, joined us, brandishing another report. User feedback is trickling in. Initial reactions are enthusiastic, but they're asking for more personalization features. I tapped my pen on the table. We'll schedule a sprint review for version 1.1 in 2 weeks. For now, let's reinforce the core features and manage expectations. Highlight our roadmap timeline. We worked through the pre-launch checklist, communications, support, monitoring, legal approvals. By 8 a.m., as the first sync call with our international teams commenced, I was ready. The video grid displayed faces. From Tokyo to Sao Paulo, dozens of team leads tuned in. I took a breath and launched the call. Good morning, everyone, I began, voice streaming through fiber optic cables across continents. Today, Project Horizon goes live in all 5 markets. Our metrics show flawless performance during stress tests, but we're prepared for any incident. Let's review roles and protocols. Each regional lead outlined their local launch plan, localized messaging, time zone-specific user support, and partnerships with regional influencers. I interjected with final reminders. monitor real-time dashboards, escalate anomalies within 5 minutes, and maintain open communication channels. After 90 minutes, the screens filled with nods and thumbs-ups. The global launch was officially underway. I clicked off the call and leaned back, allowing myself a fleeting smile. Then it was time to engage the wider world. I headed to the company's studio, a glass-walled broadcast room overlooking the atrium, where a camera crew waited. Melissa was already lighting the set. "Okay, Vivian," she said, adjusting a microphone. "Your opening remarks are tomorrow's keynote for the virtual town hall, but we're doing a teaser for social media today. Camera 2, please." As the red light blinked, I reminded myself. Authenticity. This wasn't just a corporate launch. It was my story now, interwoven with the company's future. "Hi, I'm Vivian Harper," I said, tapping the desk. "Thank you to everyone who made Project Horizon possible. We're live across 5 markets, and the response has been incredible so far. Stay tuned for more updates, and don't forget to share your experiences with #ProjectHorizon. Let's shape the future, together." The crew cut, and I exhaled. As the afternoon unfolded, alerts pinged relentlessly. The rollout was stable. No major incidents. Social media chatter grew. The hashtag trended briefly. Positive stories of early adopters praising our new interface flooded in. Yet beneath the triumph, I sensed a subtle countercurrent. Whispers of a competitor preparing their own launch next quarter, analysts speculating on long-term viability. By evening, I convened a debrief with key stakeholders. In the war room, screens displayed uptime graphs, 100% across regions, and engagement heat maps. But a few red flags appeared: minor latency spikes in the Asia-Pacific servers, and a cluster of negative comments about missing features. I addressed each point methodically. Latency, DevOps team, investigate and implement dynamic scaling rules. Feature feedback. Rania, prioritize enhancements for the next sprint. As for the competitor leak, let's issue a statement emphasizing Horizon's proven performance and flexibility. They nodded, drafting tasks and assigning owners. When the meeting ended, I looked around the room, still humming with energy into the night. I felt the familiar tension. Victory was always provisional. I took my phone, opened a note, and typed, "Sunrise, record impact metrics. Noon, monitor social sentiment. 6 p.m. global debrief. Continue sprints for 50% roadmap features." It was my way of ordering chaos. Then, as the clock approached midnight, I was alone once more, save for the dim glow of office lights and the distant hum of the city. I packed my laptop and paused at the window, looking out at the horizon reflected in the Thames below. The city pulsed with potential and threats. Tomorrow we'd iterate, we'd refine, we'd defend our momentum. Because in this world, an idea might launch you forward, but resilience would carry you through. And I, Vivian Harper, had no intention of letting Horizon falter on my watch. The morning after the global launch was a study in contrasts. As I drove in, media alerts had calmed down, replaced by detailed analyses and long-form think pieces dissecting Horizon's potential. Some praised our vision. Others questioned sustainability. But in the data-driven corridors of Caldwell Industries, speculation held no power. The real battlefield was in our metrics, our user feedback, and our team's ability to iterate swiftly. I entered the war room at 7 a.m. Rania and her UX designers were huddled around the interactive whiteboard, sketching new feature ideas based on last night's feedback. Marcus and the finance team were finalizing cost projections for the next phase. Priya fielded messages from regional leads. I walked in, energy pulsing. "Good morning. Let's kick off with a quick status update and then dive into the counterattacks." Rania led off. "We have 3 major themes from user feedback: personalization enhancements, mobile optimization, and advanced analytics dashboards." I jotted notes. "Excellent. For personalization, allocate the front-end team to prototype 3 new templates by next Wednesday." Marcus chimed in. "On mobile optimization, adding extra servers in our Asia-Pacific cluster should reduce latency by 20%. Budget approval is pending." I nodded. "Make it happen." "And for analytics dashboards, let's collaborate with the data science team to build out customizable views." Priya interrupted. I received a request from Investor Council for a live demo next week. I paused, considering. We'll do it. Schedule it, but only after we have robust enhancements. Let's show them Horizon's adaptability. As the team dispersed to their tasks, my phone buzzed with a text. They're gearing up for competition. It was an anonymous source again, a whisper from the shadows. I scanned my mind for the plausible rival. Perhaps a longtime competitor, Novatech, who always seemed one step behind Caldwell's innovations. I immediately looped in my strategy analyst, Peter Liu. Investigate any hints of Novatech's roadmap. What can we anticipate? Peter's reply came swiftly. They've filed patents related to predictive AI analytics, potentially a new product line. I tapped out a directive. Order a rapid feasibility study on AI integration into Horizon. If we can blend predictive analytics, we not only leap ahead but also neutralize their edge. By noon, I convened a special hackathon session. Engineers clustered around screens displaying code repositories, data models, and AI frameworks. The whiteboard read, Project Horizon AI Sprint, 48 hours. Over the next 2 days, the war room became a hive of activity. Sleep-deprived but energized coders wrote pipelines, tested models, and collaborated with UX on intuitive interfaces. Marcus monitored budget burn rates, Rania ensured user flows remained seamless, and Priya managed communications. Meanwhile, I crafted strategic narratives, board updates, investor memos, press teasers. Each message carefully balanced transparency with authority. I struck the tone. Horizon evolves with user needs and market shifts. We lead by listening. On the evening of the hackathon's second day, the team gathered to review prototypes. The room was electric. A live demo showcased AI-driven recommendations layered into the user interface, predictive trends visualized in customizable charts, and a natural language query feature powered by our in-house NLP engine. Eyes widened, especially Jason's, who joined via video link. This is remarkable work, he said, voice echoing through the speakers. You've taken Horizon to a new frontier. I allowed myself a small smile. This is just the beginning. With AI integration, we solidify our advantage. The room buzzed with excitement, but I reminded everyone, we're not shipping this yet. We need rigorous testing and stakeholder buy-in. Prepare a comprehensive proposal for the next board meeting. As I wrapped up, I realized the pattern. Every forward step would trigger a counterattack. Competitor moves, investor demands, internal skepticism. The only way to stay ahead was continuous innovation, relentless execution, and strategic communication. Late that night, back in my office, I drafted the board memo, Project Horizon AI Integration Proposal, Feasibility, Roadmap, and ROI Projections. I attached supporting data and set a meeting invite. Then I leaned back and closed my eyes. The city lights outside flickered like distant beacons. My journey had transformed from a single coup to an ongoing campaign, one I was determined to win. Because in the world of corporate warfare, adaptation was the weapon of choice, and I aimed to wield it masterfully. The dawn broke with a cool breeze whispering through the urban canyons of the city, heralding a day of strategic maneuvering. As I drove to the office, I reviewed the board memo slides on my tablet. Project Horizon AI Integration Proposal. Each slide contained meticulously charted projections, timelines, risk assessments, and contingency plans. The memo positioned AI as a natural evolution of Horizon's data-driven ethos, promising to boost personalization metrics by 25% and unlock predictive insights that could reduce churn by 30%. It was bold, perhaps even too bold, but necessary. I arrived at the 18th floor just before 7:30 a.m., greeted by the sight of the war room's lights still flickering, a testament to my team's late-night work. I toasted them silently with a coffee as I entered. Rania was sketching UI overlays for the AI features. Marcus was cross-referencing financial forecasts, and Priya was coordinating with communications to draft an op-ed announcing our vision for Smart Horizon. Morning, I said, taking my place at the head of the table. Today, we cement our stronghold. We present our AI integration to the board this afternoon. But before that, we need to ensure our defenses are impenetrable. I tapped the table, my signal to focus. First, we ran through a live demo of the AI-driven recommendation engine, showcasing personalized content cards tailored to user behavior. The system analyzed real-time engagement data, predicted user interests, and seamlessly adjusted the interface. Marcus checked the real-time analytics stream. Click-through rates jumped by 22% in the simulation. I highlighted the ROI projections. Improved retention, higher upsell rates, and operational cost savings through predictive maintenance of our support channels. Next, Rania led a rapid-fire review of user journey flows, ensuring that the AI components integrated flawlessly without disrupting core interactions. She flagged potential friction points, loading delays under peak traffic. The engineers confirmed optimizations, edge caching strategies, and asynchronous model preloading. Finally, Priya presented the external communications plan, an op-ed to be featured in the Financial Times, a webinar for industry thought leaders, and a synchronized social media campaign under hashtags #MarthHorizon. We rehearsed key messages. Horizon would be the first corporate platform to embed AI at its core, with transparency and user empowerment as guiding principles. With preparations complete, I stepped into Jason Caldwell's office for a final briefing. He reviewed the slides one last time, nodding thoughtfully. "This will either solidify your legacy or become a cautionary tale," he remarked, half smiling. I met his gaze. "I'm ready." The boardroom was primed once more. At 2 p.m., I stood before them, flanked by Jason and Helena Ross. I opened the presentation, Project Horizon AI Integration Phase 1. The first slide displayed a bold graphic, a horizon line infused with flowing algorithms. As I walked the board through the vision, I felt the same rush of focus that had carried me through the initial coup. But this time, the stakes were higher. We weren't just defending a proposal, we were fortifying Caldwell's future. By the time I concluded, the room was charged with possibility. Helena leaned forward, her voice measured. "This level of innovation is rare, but it also introduces new risks, ethical considerations, data privacy, algorithmic bias. How are you addressing these?" I clicked to a slide outlining our AI ethics framework, internal review boards, bias auditing protocols, and user opt-out mechanisms. The board members nodded, satisfied that we had anticipated their concerns. When the vote was called, the outcome was clear: unanimous approval to proceed with Phase 1. The board's final words echoed in the chamber: "Lead the charge, Ms. Harper." Returning to the war room, I saw the team erupt in cheers, but I raised my hand for silence. We've won the vote, but the real work begins now. Let's execute flawlessly. Over the next weeks, our once quiet corridors transformed into a symphony of progress. Engineers refining AI models, UX writers crafting transparent consent dialogues, marketers rolling out teaser campaigns, and legal teams finalizing compliance checklists. Every day, I monitored metrics with unwavering vigilance, adapting strategies dynamically. And every night, as the city lights danced beyond my office window, I reminded myself, success was not a destination, but a continuous journey. For in the world of corporate strategy, power was never static. To maintain it, one had to reinforce the stronghold at every turn, for loyalty, like trust, could shift with the tide. And I, Vivian Harper, would ensure our fortress stood unassailable. The calendar on my wall glowed crimson with deadlines: Q1 assessments, AI model reviews, global rollout check-ins. I stared at it, tracing the lines between each milestone, realizing the distance we had traveled, and the summit we still had to conquer. It was a Friday afternoon when the first tremor of doubt struck. I was in my office overlooking the Thames, reviewing user behavior heat maps, when an urgent message popped up. Security breach detected in analytics cluster. Unauthorized access logged. My pulse quickened. I dashed to the war room, where Marcus and our cybersecurity lead, Elena Cortez, pored over logs. Screens displayed a flood of IP addresses, unauthorized logins, and a rogue script siphoning data. "Vivian, look at this," Elena said, highlighting foreign addresses routed through anonymizers. They bypassed authentication using a novel exploit. We're talking exfiltration of user data, potentially catastrophic. My mind raced. A breach of trust in the midst of our most ambitious launch could unravel everything. How long? I demanded. 24 hours, maybe more, but they've covered their tracks. I exhaled. We need containment protocols now. Cut access, isolate affected nodes, and spin up clean clusters. As they scrambled to implement measures, I scheduled an emergency stakeholders call. Within the hour, I was briefing Jason Caldwell and the senior leadership team, the nature of the breach, the scope, and our immediate response. Faces drained of color, voices hushed with tension. Jason's jaw clenched. Do we know who? Not yet, I replied, but it's sophisticated, likely done by someone with deep knowledge of our infrastructure. Could be an insider or a well-funded competitor. He leaned back. Then let's find out. Elena, lead the investigation. Vivian, draft a communication plan for our users and investors. We can't let this become a scandal. I nodded, adrenaline surging. I drafted the outline for a press release, acknowledgement of the incident, assurance of containment, and a commitment to transparency. Then I looped in Melissa to refine the messaging. No jargon, empathetic tone, clear next steps. Meanwhile, the analytics team deployed forensic tools, digging through terabytes of logs, tracing suspicious processes, and quarantining compromised servers. Each discovery unspooled another thread, encrypted backdoors, disguised command and control signals, and a trail leading to a shadowy IP in Eastern Europe. The next morning, the press release went live. Social media and news outlets buzzed. Caldwell Industries was under cyber attack, but the company had swiftly contained the breach. Headlines ranged from sympathetic, corporate transparency praised amid breach, to alarmist, data threat looms over launching platform. Quote, still, user sentiment remained cautiously supportive. They valued our honesty, but the breach had planted seeds of doubt. As I watched the reactions, another message arrived, a taunting email from the unknown adversary. The subject line, nice try, Ms. Harper. The horizon is not yours alone. The body contained fragments of code and a promise. This is only the beginning. A chill ran through me. Our greatest achievements had drawn our fiercest challenges. I convened the war room for a rapid-fire strategy session. First, I said, voice steady despite the tremor in my chest, we'll accelerate our cybersecurity roadmap. Penetration tests daily, intrusion detection alerts in real time, and red team exercises every quarter. No excuses. Second, Marcus added, we freeze the AI integration until we're sure our data integrity is bulletproof. I nodded, agreed. Third, we proactively engage users with transparent updates, demonstrating our improvements and commitment to their trust. Rania suggested interactive webinars, an opportunity to demonstrate security features and AI enhancements side by side. Let's do it, I said. Schedule a live demo next week. Show them the rebuilt clusters, the new dashboards, and the AI models. Fully secure, fully robust. As the team sprang into action, I felt the weight of leadership press upon me. Every decision now carried the weight of corporate security, user trust, and global reputation. That evening, I drafted a personal note to the entire user community, a candid, first-person account of the breach, our response, and our path forward. I signed it with my name, not as an executive hiding behind corporate speak, but as a person who understood the gravity of broken trust. When I hit send, I exhaled deeply. The silhouette of the night skyline reflected in the window, a horizon cast in moonlight, reminded me that clarity often comes in darkness. Tomorrow we'd stand before our users, unflinching, to reclaim the narrative. And though the shadow of doubt had crept across our horizon, I would not allow it to become a permanent stain. Because resilience, like innovation, was a choice. And I, Vivian Harper, chose to stand tall. The reverberations of the cyber breach still echoed through the halls when dawn arrived on Monday. My first stop was the war room, where the flicker of multiple screens showcased the latest security dashboards. No new anomalies detected, and user trust metrics beginning to rebound. Yet I knew better than to take solace in a single morning's calm. The team had worked through the weekend, deploying fortified firewalls, reforging encryption keys, and conducting rigorous penetration tests. Elena reported that the rogue IP had been traced to an external threat group, an organized cyber syndicate known for corporate extortion. The breach, she confirmed, was a distraction as much as an assault. Divert attention while they mapped our deeper vulnerabilities. I gathered everyone around the central console. We need to turn this setback into a catalyst for unassailable strength. We've patched the breach, but now we build walls where there were windows. I tapped the monitor, which displayed a multi-layered security architecture. We will implement zero-trust protocols for all internal and external access. MFA across the board, micro-segmentation of critical services, and AI-driven anomaly detection. Priya chimed in, concern flickering in her eyes. We also need to reassure our user base. The personal note you sent was a hit, but I'm seeing some pushback on social channels. Users asking for real-time transparency. They want to see the proof of our inspection and testing. I nodded. Let's organize a live State of Horizon webinar. Elena and I will co-host it. She can walk them through our reinforced security measures, and I'll showcase the AI enhancements now integrated and fully secured. I set a date for 2 days out. Weeks of meticulous preparation followed. Engineers stress-testing every cluster under simulated attack conditions, UX designers crafting clear interactive dashboards to visualize security status, the PR team rehearsing key messages, and our legal counsel drafting compliance statements for GDPR and other regulations. But beneath the flurry of activity, another threat emerged, an internal memo from the board. A surprise quarterly audit to evaluate the company's security and operational resilience. The auditors would be on site in 48 hours, reviewing everything from code repositories to disaster recovery plans. The news hit like a shockwave. A board audit meant scrutiny at the highest level, no margin for error. I called an emergency huddle. We have 2 days to prepare for the audit, I said, voice steady though adrenaline surged. We need documentation, incident reports, remediation logs, and demonstration environments ready for their inspection. Rania, coordinate with UX to create guided walkthroughs of our dashboards. Elena, compile the security incident report with timeline, root cause analysis, and mitigation steps. Marcus, provide the financial and compliance cost breakdown. Priya, draft an executive summary for the auditors and prepare a secure briefing room. They nodded, faces set with determination. Over the next 48 hours, the office became a hive of focused urgency. Each team raced to compile evidence of our resilience, logs annotated with timestamps, incident response playbooks, AI ethics review board minutes, and customer outreach records. On the eve of the audit, I sat alone in the briefing room reviewing the final binder, every document bound and indexed. My phone buzzed with a secure message from an anonymous source. I hesitated, reflection flickering in the lamp's glow. The message read, "Audit won't save you from what's coming." No signature, no clue, just a foreboding promise. A chill ran down my spine. The next morning, as auditors arrived in black suits and hratzar, the air crackled with anticipation. I greeted them with practiced poise, guiding them through the briefing room, the war room, and finally into the executive suite. They spent hours reviewing files, inspecting code repositories, and interrogating the AI models. At one point, their lead auditor, Ms. Delgado, lifted her head from the laptop and met my gaze. "Ms. Harper, your team's response to the breach was commendable, but I noticed an anomaly in the rollback logs. One sequence appears overwritten. Can you explain?" I felt my pulse quicken. Certainly. I led them to the interactive dashboard I'd commissioned, which tracked every change to the deployment pipeline. Here, you can see the full chain of custody. Each commit, each rollback. The overwritten sequence was replaced during our final synchronization, and the change history is fully documented in the forensic logs. She examined it, her expression inscrutable. After a tense moment, she nodded and moved on, but the seed of doubt had been planted. By sunset, the auditors departed, promising a detailed report in a week's time. I exhaled, but the weight of the anonymous message lingered. Someone knew about the overwritten logs. Someone was watching our moves with unsettling precision. That night, I drafted a memo to Jason Caldwell. Board audit completed, awaiting findings. Also, potential insider threat. Logs overwritten. Investigation recommended. Quote, as I sent it, the sky behind the city lights shimmered with distant storms. The horizon beyond was no longer a line between sky and earth. It was a frontier of uncertainty, where vulnerability and opportunity coexisted. I locked my laptop and prepared to leave, but as I stood, a shadow flickered at the glass door. I turned, and the silhouette belonged to someone I trusted most. I felt the weight of his gaze before I saw him. In the dim glow of the briefing room's exit light stood Daniel Ortiz, my trusted system architect, the one who had worked side by side with me since the earliest days of Project Horizon. He was framed in silhouette, his posture unassuming, but I recognized the tremor in his hands when he stepped forward. "Vivian," he began, voice low, "we need to talk." My pulse stuttered. Daniel's presence here, after hours, suggested more than a casual after-work debrief. "Now?" I said, carefully masking my suspicion. "Is everything all right?" He hesitated, eyes flicking to the piles of binders and screens around us. "It's about the audit logs and the breach. I know what happened." A chill ran through me. "And tell me." He closed the door behind him, leaning against the glossy wall. I didn't want to believe it, but someone on the inside facilitated the breach and altered the logs to cover their tracks. They used credentials only 3 people share. You, me, and Helena Ross. His gaze dropped to the floor. But the timestamps on the overwritten sequence don't match when Helena was on her flight back from Frankfurt. She's innocent, so it has to be someone else with elevated privileges. My mind raced. Who else has the keys? Daniel pressed his lips together. There's one other. It was left in the protocols by the previous CTO, in an override file that only someone at Jason Caldwell's level, or someone he authorized, could access. I stared at him. You're saying Caldwell himself may be involved? He nodded, or he handed off access to someone he trusted. Either way, the betrayal runs deeper than we thought. I backed away, heart pounding. The horizon I'd fought so hard to secure now lay plagued by shadows not just without, but within. Give me everything you have, I ordered, fighting to keep my voice steady. Timestamps? File hashes, network logs, everything. He slid a sealed flash drive across the table. It's all here, but be careful. If I'm wrong and accusations fly without proof, Horizon's launch and my career could be in jeopardy. I pocketed the drive. I know what to do. Thank you for your courage, Daniel. He left without another word, and I was alone again with the hum of servers and the weight of betrayal. I returned to my office and immediately plugged the drive into my private terminal. The files decrypted, revealing a trail of covert SSH connections logged under an alias Caldwell_BKP. The timestamps corresponded precisely to the moments we had first detected unauthorized access. A sinking realization settled in. Jason Caldwell had orchestrated the breach to test Horizon's defenses, perhaps to assert control. But the altered logs suggested he intended to frame an opposition faction within the board, an audacious power move. If this got out, it would splinter the company. Trust between leadership and the board would collapse, investors would flee, and Horizon's future would be irreparably damaged. But staying silent would make me complicit. I had to act. I drafted a secure message to Helena Ross. Urgent. Meet in person at 9 p.m. Private. I have evidence of unauthorized breaches and need your counsel and trusted support. I toughened my resolve and headed to the executive wing's hidden conference room. The corridors were empty, but every shadow felt alive. My phone buzzed. An alert from security. The SSH alias Caldwell_BKP had just tried to access the corporate archive. I broke into a run, descending 2 flights to the secure archives, but by the time I arrived, the override was already canceled. Whoever was behind the alias moved faster than I could anticipate. Frustration flared. I needed allies, and I needed them now. At precisely 9 p.m., I found Helena waiting alone in the hushed glow of the hidden conference room. She looked solid, resolute, yet the downturn of her lips betrayed her tension. I slid the flash drive across the table. I found this. The breach and log alterations point to the CTO credentials, but the trail leads back to Jason. Her eyes widened as she accessed the files. She scrolled rapidly, absorbing each timestamp and signature. Finally, she locked eyes with me. "He's testing us," she said quietly. "He wants to prove he's indispensable by creating chaos only he can control." "If we expose him," I began. She cut me off. "We can't let this become a public scandal. It will destroy Horizon and the company. We need a careful counter-strategy." Quote. My mind spun. "We'll document everything, build an airtight case, and confront him in the boardroom, but we're outnumbered unless we secure more allies." Helena nodded. "I'll rally Ellsworth and Bennett. They're already uneasy about Caldwell's tactics. We can force a no-confidence vote if necessary." Hope flared within me. "And we need proof that can't be refuted. Error logs, timestamps, forensic analysis from Elena. We compile the dossier by tomorrow morning and deliver it to the board in a closed session." She extended her hand. "Together." I clasped it firmly. "Together." We left the room side by side, allies forged in the crucible of betrayal. But as we exited into the silent corridor, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, another shadow lingering just beyond the edge of the light. And with every step, I heard Caldwell's warning echo in my mind. One misstep, Harper. One glitch, and Horizon crashes. Now, it wasn't just a glitch. It was a coup. And I had to orchestrate the counter-strike. The morning board session was called at dawn, in a discreet, members-only conference room. No secretary, no PR, only the core directors. I arrived alongside Helena Ross, dossier in hand. The air smelled of polished wood and anticipation. A round table gleamed under the chandelier's glow, nameplates removed. Jason entered last, exuding calm authority. His gaze flicked to me, then to Helena, an unreadable expression on his face. Ellsworth spoke first. "Thank you all for assembling on such short notice." He turned to Jason. "Mr. Caldwell, we have serious concerns regarding recent security incidents." Jason's brow furrowed. "Security incidents? You mean the breach?" he asked, voice steady. Ellsworth nodded. "We have evidence of unauthorized access and tampered logs that point to credentials only within your control." Jason's composure cracked. His lips pressed tight. "That's a serious accusation." Helena slid the dossier across the table. "Evidence." She tapped a marked page. "These timestamps and SSH signatures correspond with your override file, which had no business being accessed since the breach." Jason reached for the dossier, but his hand trembled. "This is fabricated." I spoke up. "We have Elena's forensic report corroborating these logs. We also have system snapshots showing the override was executed from this building." Jason swallowed. "You're suggesting I authorized the breach?" I held his gaze. "Either you authorized it or someone at your direction did." He stood, face darkening. "This is a power play." Helena rose too. "It's a defense of the company you pledged to serve." Jason turned on Ellsworth. "You're colluding with her against me?" Ellsworth shook his head. "I'm protecting the board's integrity." A charged silence ensued. The chandeliers flickered as if sensing the tension. Jason's shoulders slumped. "Fine. If it's a vote you want, then it's a vote you'll get." Helena's voice was cold. "All in favor of suspending Mr. Caldwell's override privileges and launching a formal investigation?" Hands rose slowly. Ellsworth, Bennett, Ross, and me. Jason stared at his raised hand, then lowered it. Helena's lips curved. "Motion carries." The room exhaled. Jason's gaze shifted, first to me, then away. Defeat and fury warred in his eyes. I felt a pang of triumph mingled with sorrow. A mentor turned adversary, a coup averted, but at a steep price. As the session adjourned, Ellsworth clasped my shoulder. "You did well." Helena nodded. "You saved Horizon." I turned back to the empty seat where Jason would no longer sit as CTO. The horizon outside seemed brighter, yet I sensed new storms on the way. Because in the empire of innovation, power shifts like sand. Today I had won the battle. Tomorrow I would secure the peace. And the true test of leadership would begin. The boardroom doors closed behind me with a definitive click, signaling the end of Caldwell's reign and the dawn of a new era. As I emerged into the corridor, colleagues gathered in small clusters, their faces a mix of relief and cautious optimism. The news traveled like wildfire. Project Horizon was under new stewardship, and its future was brighter than ever. I returned to the war room, where the team awaited with bated breath. Rania's eyes shone with renewed purpose. Marcus's posture radiated confidence. Priya's fingers hovered over her keyboard, ready to unleash the next wave of communications. Even Elena allowed herself a small smile. Our fortress of security had held. I addressed them, voice steady but filled with emotion. We've upheld our commitment to innovation, to integrity, and to each other. Today, we rise from the ashes of betrayal. I gestured to the central screen. But our mission is not complete. We have AI integration to refine, global expansion to navigate, and the trust of every Caldwell employee and user to reinforce. Quote, we dove back into action. Developers fine-tuned the predictive models, UX polished intuitive privacy controls, operations extended the rollout into 3 new markets, and PR launched a campaign celebrating the resilience of Project Horizon. News outlets heralded the transformation, Caldwell Industries reborn under new leadership, and Project Horizon, a beacon of corporate innovation. Social media buzzed with endorsements from industry influencers. Yet, I remained vigilant. Success could breed complacency, and complacency could invite new threats. Late that night, I stood in my office, reviewing progress metrics, user engagement soaring, AI-driven retention improving, security logs pristine. The horizon outside glowed with city lights, an endless constellation of possibilities. My phone buzzed with a secure message from Helena. Board wants to formalize new governance. Meeting at noon. The subtext was clear. They recognized the need for stable leadership structures to sustain the momentum I'd built. I drafted my response. Understood. I'll be there. Then I paused. This was more than a meeting. It was the next frontier. Ensuring Project Horizon's longevity meant codifying the principles that sustained it: transparency, collaboration, and fearless innovation. As I closed the laptop, I felt the familiar thrill of anticipation. Tomorrow's challenges were unseen, the next chapters unwritten, but one truth remained steadfast. Every horizon is conquered one step at a time, and I, Vivian Harper, would keep stepping forward. The next chapter of Project Horizon began with an electric sense of possibility. It was early morning when I stood before the full leadership team, reviewing our expanded governance framework that the board had drafted. The room buzzed with energy. Everyone from product managers to regional directors had gathered, united by a shared vision. Today, I began, we formalize the structures that will carry Horizon into its next phase. We codify our values of transparency, collaboration, and relentless innovation. This isn't just about processes, it's about culture. I walked them through the governance document, clear decision-making tiers, cross-functional councils, and user advisory panels. We introduced quarterly innovation summits, where teams worldwide would pitch enhancements directly to the board, ensuring that ideas could rise from anywhere in the organization. As we finalized the framework, I felt a profound sense of pride. From a lone junior exec challenging the status quo, I had emerged as a leader uniting stakeholders across continents. But no victory comes without its challenges. Moments after the meeting, my assistant informed me that regulatory compliance flags had appeared in our French data centers. New GDPR guidelines demanded immediate action. With the same determination that fueled Project Horizon's launch, I assembled a rapid response task force. Over the next 48 hours, we updated privacy policies, revalidated user consents, and updated data retention protocols. The legal team worked around the clock, translators ensured bilingual disclosures, and the engineering team deployed region-specific patches. When we tested the compliance measures, the system passed every audit with flying colors. We had not just met the standard, we had redefined it. That evening, as I reviewed user analytics, I saw something remarkable: a surge in engagement from European markets, spurred by our transparent approach to privacy. It was proof that trust, once won, translated directly into loyalty. I drafted a personal message to our European user base. Thank you for holding us to a higher standard. We listened, learned, and delivered. Let's continue shaping the digital horizon, together. The response was immediate and heartfelt, flooding in with testimonials and suggestions. It was a reminder that leadership wasn't just about steering a company, it was about listening to the people who fuel its heartbeat. As the sun set on another day of triumphs and trials, I sat in my office and reflected. The horizon I once chased now stretched before me, vast and uncharted. And I, Vivian Harper, was ready to chart every inch of it. The third quarter review had a different energy than previous board meetings. Gone were the tense undercurrents and whispered power plays. In their place was a collective pride in Project Horizon's achievements and palpable excitement for its future. Board members, including Ellsworth and Ross, commended the tangible progress, global expansion hitting targets, AI-driven personalization metrics smashing projections, and European compliance enhancements earning industry praise. Even Jason Caldwell, now serving in an advisory role, acknowledged the transformed landscape with measured respect. As the meeting segued into strategy discussions, I stood before the table, feeling both exhilaration and responsibility. Our next milestone, I began, is to ensure Horizon's legacy extends beyond metrics and features. We must embed it into Caldwell's identity and culture. I proposed the creation of the Horizon Fellowship, an internal mentorship program pairing emerging leaders with cross-functional veterans. Its mission would be to cultivate innovation, ethical leadership, and resilience across every level of the company. The board approved enthusiastically. Immediately after the meeting, I met with HR and Learning and Development to outline the fellowship's curriculum, leadership workshops, cross-department rotations, and annual innovation challenges. We aimed to launch the first cohort in Q1 of next year. As I navigated the corridors, colleagues stopped me to share personal stories. How Horizon had empowered their teams, spurred new product lines, and simplified customer journeys. Each anecdote reaffirmed that Project Horizon wasn't just a corporate initiative, it was a movement. That evening, I hosted an informal gathering in the atrium, pizza, refreshments, and live demos of upcoming Horizon features. The atrium buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the glow of people's tablets showcasing personalized dashboards. I mingled, listening to feedback, a marketing manager's excitement about AI-driven campaign targeting, a developer's suggestion for a new analytics module, and a customer support lead's idea for an integrated knowledge base. I jotted notes, fostering an environment where every voice mattered. By the time the event wound down, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The genesis of a fellowship, the community's enthusiasm, it was proof that Horizon's impact went beyond KPIs. Returning to my office, I reviewed the evening's feedback and consolidated themes for the fellowship's pilot projects. As I prepared to send the finalized plan, my phone buzzed with a message from an industry association. Caldwell Industries had been nominated for the Innovation in Corporate Governance Award, citing Project Horizon as a case study. A smile spread across my face. Recognition on this scale was more than a trophy. It was validation that thoughtful leadership, coupled with fearless innovation, could reshape corporate landscapes. I composed a brief announcement for the company. We've been nominated for the Innovation in Corporate Governance Award. This honor belongs to every member of the Horizon community. Let's continue setting new standards together. As I pressed send, I looked out the window at the horizon, a tapestry of endless possibility. The journey from boardroom coup to global movement had been harrowing and exhilarating in equal measure. Yet even as we celebrated, I knew the true measure of our legacy would not be awards or metrics, but the lasting culture of innovation we embedded in the company's DNA. And that, I realized, was the most enduring horizon of all. The air in the boardroom that morning felt charged, not because of tension, but anticipation. It was the quarterly strategy session, and instead of fighting fires, we were charting new pathways. The horizon of possibilities stretched farther than I'd imagined back when I first stormed the board. I opened with a review of Horizon's impact metrics, market penetration rates, retention curves, AI-assisted upselling, and employee satisfaction scores post-Horizon implementation. Each slide told a story of transformation, from a cautious pilot to a cornerstone of Caldwell Industries' identity. But I also recognized the need for continuous evolution. Innovation, I told the board, is not an event, it's a process of perpetual renewal. We must stay ahead of market shifts, emerging technologies, and changing customer expectations. I outlined 3 strategic thrusts. 1. Adaptive learning, asterisk. Implement AI models that learn from global usage patterns in real time, enabling hyper-personalization. 2. Open platform, asterisk. Develop an API ecosystem allowing third-party developers to build extensions, fostering a community-led expansion. 3. Unanimously AI Research Lab, asterisk. Establish an in-house lab dedicated to researching AI ethics, transparency, and user safeguards. Board members leaned in, intrigued. Ellsworth asked about resource allocation. Ross highlighted compliance implications. Jason, now a senior advisor, offered historical perspective on scaling initiatives. Their synergy in the discussion felt like the culmination of our journey together. After unanimous approval, the war room transformed into launch control. Teams divided into sprints for each thrust. The Open Platform Task Force collaborated with external partners to define API standards. The AI Lab recruited top researchers and ethicists, forging partnerships with leading universities. The Adaptive Learning team fine-tuned neural networks for responsiveness. One afternoon, as I reviewed progress with the AI Lab, their lead scientist, Dr. Abigail Morrison, presented a breakthrough, a federated learning prototype that allowed models to train across decentralized user devices without compromising privacy. The potential was staggering: improved performance without data centralization. This could redefine our architecture, Dr. Morrison said, eyes alight. Users keep their data, yet the system learns collectively. I felt a thrill. Let's integrate a pilot. Work with UX to design a transparent user consent flow. We'll launch in 3 markets for the next sprint. Meanwhile, the Open Platform team published public documentation and hosted virtual hackathons. Developers worldwide submitted innovative plugins, from localized language packs to niche analytics modules. As I monitored the developer portal metrics, I saw the community's creations, small but powerful, emerging as potential product diversifications. It was proof that empowering others could amplify innovation. Amid these triumphs, I felt a personal transformation. The nervous executive who once barged into the board had become a steward of a movement, guiding Caldwell Industries into an era defined by collaboration and ethical innovation. That evening, I addressed the entire company via live stream. Horizon is no longer just our project. It's ours to share, evolve, and protect together. Let's embrace these winds of change and ride them to new heights. The chat exploded with affirmations, emojis, and pledges to contribute. I closed the feed, heart full. As I looked out at the skyline, the horizon glowed with promise. The winds of change were no longer storms to weather, but gusts to harness. And I, Vivian Harper, stood at their helm. As the calendar flipped to Q4, Project Horizon's pulse had become the lifeblood of Caldwell Industries. The corridors thrummed with collaborative energy, and every department, not just tech, had Horizon at the heart of their mission. Sales teams leveraged AI-driven insights to tailor pitches. HR used personalization dashboards to refine employee engagement. Customer support resolved issues with predictive problem detection. Yet, amidst the chorus of success, I felt a subtle restlessness. The horizon I defined felt too narrow. If Horizon was the future of Caldwell Industries, then what lay beyond? I drafted a proposal, Horizon 2.0, a vision beyond. It envisioned transforming Horizon from a corporate platform into an industry ecosystem, a digital marketplace where partners, startups, and enterprises could co-create solutions. It was ambitious, perhaps audacious, but the data supported it. Analyst projections indicated a $500 million market opportunity for an open digital ecosystem built on Horizon's foundation. I scheduled a closed-door strategy session with Ellsworth, Ross, and key executives. When I presented the vision, I felt the familiar spark of excitement laced with apprehension. We've created a platform that powers our company, I told them. Now we can extend its reach beyond our walls, into supply chains, partner networks, and adjacent industries. Horizon could become the standard for enterprise collaboration. Ross leaned back. It's bold, and it will require investment, security assurances, and a robust governance model. Agreed, I replied. But the ROI potential is unprecedented. We start with pilot partnerships in fintech and healthcare, industries primed for our analytics and personalization capabilities. From there, we iterate. Ellsworth smiled. If anyone can do this, it's you, Vivian. With the board's backing, I convened cross-functional teams to flesh out the ecosystem strategy. We defined partner tiers, API governance, revenue-sharing models, and security frameworks to support external integrations. We developed a sandbox environment for early adopters and drafted partner agreements, balancing openness with enterprise-grade reliability. By month's end, 2 flagship partnerships were in motion, a collaboration with Novabank to personalize wealth management interfaces, and a pilot with MediHealth to anticipate patient service needs. Press releases hailed the moves as industry-defining, and investor confidence soared. As I monitored global performance dashboards, I felt a profound sense of purpose. Horizon had evolved from an internal initiative into an external revolution. The horizon beyond the horizon stretched limitless. That evening, as I stood on the rooftop terrace with the city lights beneath my feet, I reflected on the journey, from the audacious board coup to building an industry-spanning ecosystem. The lessons had been harsh. Trust must be earned, power defended, vision extended beyond immediate victories. Yet, through every challenge, one constant remained: the courage to step into the unknown. Tomorrow, as we formalize Horizon 2.0's launch at our Global Partners Summit, I'll stand before an audience of thousands, entrepreneurs, executives, and innovators, all ready to embark on this next voyage. And as I address them, I'll know that horizons are not limits, they're invitations. The summit hall buzzed with anticipation, a sea of industry leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs filling the sprawling conference center. As I approached the stage, the giant screens emblazoned with the Horizon 2.0 logo glowed like beacons of possibility. The journey from junior project manager to this moment, standing atop the world I helped build, felt surreal. I stepped into the spotlight and activated the teleprompter. For a heartbeat, the hall fell silent. "Good morning, everyone," I began, voice resonant. "Welcome to the dawn of a new era, Horizon 2.0 Summit." Applause rippled through the audience, a tidal wave of energy that surged across the room. Today, we launch not just a product, but a movement, a global ecosystem of collaboration, innovation, and ethical leadership. Horizon 2.0 is our invitation to partners worldwide. Co-create, co-elevate, and co-define the future. I spoke of our flagship partnerships, Novabank and MediHealth, case studies in personalization and predictive care. I unveiled the federated learning enhancements that preserved user privacy while fueling collective intelligence. I announced the Open API Marketplace, already teeming with developer-driven plugins. As the slides transitioned, I felt the weight of every milestone we'd achieved: the boardroom coup that fueled the original Horizon, the counterattacks we weathered, the global launch that proved our resilience, and the cultural transformation that embedded innovation into our corporate DNA. But none of this would be possible without a community, I continued, eyes scanning the crowd. The Horizon Fellowship, our user advisory councils, and every developer who believed in this vision, you are the architects of what lies beyond the horizon. The audience rose to their feet, a standing ovation resonating like thunder. I paused, absorbing the moment. Then, with a genuine smile, I delivered the closing words. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The hall erupted once more, and as I stepped off the stage, I knew this was not the end, but a new beginning. The horizon stretched endlessly before me, vast, uncharted, and filled with promise. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.